Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me on the south side of my house as we do some flower bed cleanup. So let's go. We are nearing the end of October here in New Hampshire, Zone 5B. The leaves continue to fall. And I wondered if I should make videos showing you how I clean up my flower beds, what the process is. And I thought it would be a great idea to do that. And in the same video, I figured I can do a small little mini garden tour if there's anything very beautiful and pretty worth showing you. The first thing I want to show you is my lawn. It was covered with leaves literally an hour and a half ago. What I did was I blew all the leaves using a leaf blower into one big pile. And after I got them in a big pile, I put the leaves on a tarp. I used a leaf shredder. I shredded up the leaves. And then I mowed my lawn with the bagger on. And I mixed all of that in my compost pile. And I put some water in between each of those layers. That's pretty much what I do with my lawn, section by section. I would say twice a week. It is a lot of work, but it's so worth it because in the end, I'm making my own compost. I'm putting the leaves to good use, and I'm giving back to my flower beds. And I save a lot of money in the process by making my own compost. So if you haven't checked out that video, definitely check out my video on how to make your own compost using things from your yard like leaves and grass clippings. What I want to do next is just show you actually what the front lawn looks like where I have a ton of leaves so you can see what I'm talking about. Do you see the leaves? So what I've done is I've blown a whole bunch of the leaves from my front lawn down to a pile over there. Now that pile did not look very big in that other angle shot that I just showed you. Look how many leaves are over here compared to me. And if we go this way, here are more leaves. Again, I blow them into piles. I take them off my lawn, I shred them up, and then I mow my lawn twice a week. It's quite a process. I really don't want to keep showing you that. I showed you it in one video, but I just wanted to point it out. That's something big that I'm doing this time of year, but I really need to tackle cleaning my flower beds. Let's go back on the south side and let's start cleaning up that bed. Over here is a Stella d'Oro daylily. I have a whole bunch of them out in this large garden bed. And right near it, over here, is a very beautiful annual. It's a salvia. One thing I want to mention about flower bed maintenance and cleanup in the fall is you're going to read and you're going to hear different things. Some people will say, leave everything as is until the springtime, for different reasons. One reason could be it's better for the insects that are hibernating in the winter months. Another reason could be that by leaving some of the plant material around your individual plant, it protects the plant during the springtime when we're apt to get the freeze-thaw cycle. I can tell you from experience in my garden, I cut back many of my perennials every fall. And the reason I do that is because I'm very busy in the springtime. I start a lot of plants from seed, both indoors under grow lights as well as using the winter sowing method. And that takes up a lot of my time right in the springtime. So I really don't have time to be doing this type of maintenance work. So now is the best time for me to cut back my perennials. In fact, there is a list of perennials out there which you really should cut back each year. I know that hosta are one of them, because if you don't cut back your hosta, you can have issues with slugs and slug eggs, or certain plants that have powdery mildew. You definitely want to cut those back, like bee balm, tall phlox, peonies. But I really try to cut back as many perennials as I can. Some of the perennials that I typically do not cut back are the ground covers in plants like heucheras. I leave those because they're not very tall. Another reason that you might not want to cut back certain perennials is because of winter interest. But here where I live, we easily get between 2 to 3 feet of snow every year. So I can assure you that this type of plant here, or even the daylilies, you won't even see them because they're going to be covered in snow. So it's definitely not a reason for me to keep plants around that are, let's say, 2 feet or shorter. It makes sense for me to just cut them back. This time of year is a great time for me to remove all of my peony rings. And when I'm cutting my perennials back, I'm not cutting them all the way to the base. I'm maybe leaving about 1 to 2 inches. And the reason for that is so that I can see in the springtime where different plants are. One of the reasons why I'm excited about cleaning these flower beds, other than the fact that it'll make my springtime a little bit easier for me, is that the leaves are all collecting in these flower beds. And I don't want them to be on these flower beds during the whole winter. They're large leaves, they'll just mat right down. So once I clean up these flower beds, it'll be a lot easier for me to use my leaf blower and blow all the leaves out of this bed. My plan is to mulch up the leaves that I can collect and put them back on these flower beds. But I want the leaves to be nice and small. So I'll use my leaf shredder to mulch up the leaves. Now I have echinacea here, and I can see that the birds have already eaten almost all the seeds on my echinacea. I left them here for as long as possible, but at this time it's time for them to go and for me to cut them back. But I am glad that the birds got to enjoy the seeds off of them. And when it comes to plants like the echinacea, I'm just cutting off the tall stalks. I'm not worried about cutting the plant all the way down to the ground. I do want there to be some protection at the crown of my plant. It's not going to bother me to come back in the spring and clean those little bits and pieces, but I definitely want to cut back these taller stalks. The same applies to my great blue lobelia. I want to cut that back, just the tall stalks where it blossomed. I feel like when it comes to things like what I'm doing right here, flower bed maintenance in the fall, it's a personal preference, it's a choice. And I really feel like there's no right or wrong. You have to do what you want to do, whatever makes you happy. If it makes you happy to leave all of this here until the springtime, that is totally fine. But if you know you're not going to have time, maybe you have an event coming up in the spring, then definitely try to get as many jobs as you can get done in the fall time. If you do have plants that have powdery mildew on them, you definitely do not want to put those plants in your compost pile. And I had a question recently regarding composting. Someone asked me about plants, let's say like this, that have nice big stalks on them. Would I put these directly into my compost pile? Let's say there was no powdery mildew, it was a very healthy plant, but the leaves are very tall. I would not put them in just like this. What I would do is I would use hand pruners and I would cut this up into smaller pieces. The reason is this will break down so much faster if you cut this up into smaller pieces. Really, anything that you put in your compost pile should be in a smaller piece. You don't want big pieces of anything in there. The smaller the pieces, the quicker your compost will break down and the easier it will be for you to turn that pile. If I had to turn my compost pile with something this big, it would be really hard to turn it. So for many reasons, you want to cut down pieces like this big into smaller chunks before putting them in your compost pile. Now, with these daylilies here, I'm just cutting back the tall stalks for right now. There are just way too many leaves for me to even see what's going on here. So what I plan on doing is coming back to each of these daylilies, and after I blow off all the leaves from these flower beds, I will then cut back all the daylilies to about 1 to 2 inches off the ground. But for right now, I'm just cutting them back a little just to tidy them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on working down that way, and I will show you how everything looks after I'm done. Now that we blew the leaves off of this big bed, I just wanted to show you how I would cut back one of the daylilies. You just want to look for the bottom of the daylily and just cut with hand pruners or garden scissors, whatever you have. And again, I usually like to leave about 1 inch at the base. But boy, let me tell you, just by cutting back some of those perennials, which were mostly the great blue lobelia, there were peonies, there were the purple coneflower, and bee balm. What a difference. It just looks so much cleaner. And not only that, when I blow my leaves, it's so much easier now to blow the leaves. And it basically tidies up this bed and gets it ready. So when I do shred up leaves and want to put it on as a mulch within the next month, it'll be so much easier to do that. I used shredded leaves last year as a mulch on a few of my flower beds, and what a difference it made with suppressing the leaves. And what I liked too was that it broke down very quickly, and the worms definitely enjoyed it. That's pretty much it. Isn't this hydrangea the most gorgeous color? I absolutely love it, and I really have been enjoying it for weeks. It seems like almost for probably a month. And what I like about it right now is not only the foliage is beautiful, but also the leaves are starting to turn a yellow color. It just looks so pretty. So this is the last daylily I have to cut back. I debated on whether or not I should show you me working on this whole entire bed and just fast forwarding it. But I thought sometimes it's nice to just show you at a very high level the process and then talk a little bit about what I'm thinking or why I'm doing something the way I'm doing it. After I blew the leaves off this flower bed, I did think to myself, wouldn't it be nice to now go in and pull some weeds? Because I definitely saw some weeds in there. And wouldn't it be nice to take it one step further and cut back some of the shorter perennials? It sure would be nice. But the reality is, we're running out of time. Before you know it, we're going to get a frost, we're going to get snow, and I still have a lot of jobs to do in my yard. So I have to, at this point, be selective and realistic about my goals and what I'm trying to accomplish. And if I have time, which is a big if, then I can always go back and cut back some more perennials that are not as tall. But for right now, I am extremely happy with what we got done in this bed today. And as you go in this direction in this bed, there are a couple of more hydrangeas, different than this one. But there are also more daylilies. They're all hidden pretty much underneath the hydrangeas. I'm not going to worry about what's down that way. The goal for today was just to worry about this direction of the bed. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how everything looks now that we've cut it back and we've blown off the leaves. But you want to stay till the end. What I thought would be fun to do would be to show you what this bed looks like during different seasons of the year. I'll show you how pretty it looks with the snow on it. And then in the spring, when all the different spring bulbs are blooming. And then in the summer, when we have the peonies and the peonies then are going by, and then the daylilies. There's some clematis in here. I really want you to see how pretty this bed looks during the different seasons. Okay, let's go ahead and I'll show you how everything looks now that we've cleaned this bed up. Over here is that beautiful hydrangea, and just notice how pretty the pink looks with the yellow leaves, and then even some yellow leaves over back here. And as we make our way this way, you can see that I did leave the lungwort. I think it actually is very pretty, and there's really no reason to cut that back. I also left a number of other leaves back here. The leaves of the coneflower, and over here are some leaves of the oxeye Shasta daisy. For right now, I think they're fine. They're not terribly tall. And what's nice is we've blown off all of the leaves that fell off the trees. It looks so nice and clean. It's funny, in the spring, I look so forward to things popping up and for this bed to be filled in with lots of beautiful things. But this time of year, I want it to be nice and clean. And this is just heading in the other end of the bed. Look at how nice it looks. If you head down that way, that's where my driveway is, and my plant nursery is just behind here. And boy, did we get a lot of nice green material that we can add to the compost pile. We have everything that's in the wheelbarrow over here, and everything that's in this pop-up container as well. So what I'm planning to do, even though it's a tedious process, is cutting up pieces of this greenery for my compost bin. There's no right or wrong size, just the smaller the piece, the quicker it will break down. I'm happy with pieces that big even. And what I'll do is I will take my leaves. I showed you the piles earlier. I will shred up the leaves, and then I will put one layer of shredded leaves, one layer of this green material, and I'll keep alternating it while also adding water. And that will heat up the pile into a nice hot temperature. Speaking of a nice hot temperature, things are definitely cooking in my compost pile, but boy, would I like to see it go up to about 140 degrees. That's where it definitely kills off those weed seeds if there are any. I hope watching this project motivated you to get out in your flower beds and to keep on cleaning up your beds. It's not too late, and you'll be so happy you did come springtime. There'll be one less thing for you to have to tackle. I hope you're able to get out in your gardens, and until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.